The white powder in your pantry, look closely at the kitchen table right now. That little glass shaker filled with pristine, snow-white crystals looks completely innocent. You use it every single day, pouring it onto your eggs, mixing it into your pasta water, and seasoning your kids' dinners. But have you ever noticed a strange, faintly metallic aftertaste in your food? Or wondered why your salt flows perfectly smoothly, like a high-end hourglass, even in the dead of a sticky, humid July summer? Here is the brutal truth your grocery store completely hides from you. The white powder you are shaking onto your food is no longer just salt. Instead, you are consuming a highly engineered industrial cocktail of anti-caking chemicals, heavy processing residues, and literal laundry-grade sugar that you have never noticed on the label. We have been systematically conditioned to judge this basic human necessity by completely backward metrics like color, price, and fancy packaging, while ignoring the hidden reality of what happens behind factory doors. What we are exposing today, you are about to get a complete masterclass in cutting through corporate marketing lies, giving you more leverage and knowledge than 90% of shoppers walking down the aisles of Target or Kroger. You will find out exactly how major corporations take a natural, life-sustaining mineral and strip it down into chemical emptiness just to save a fraction of a cent on manufacturing. I will show you the precise laboratory data and independent testing that caught some of the most expensive, trendy, and supposedly healthy salts on the market, hiding terrifying levels of industrial contaminants. We will break down how to test your own kitchen pantry in less than 5 minutes using 2 ridiculous experiments with items you already own. We are lining up the most popular salt brands in America to separate the genuine articles from the absolute garbage. Trust me, the most shocking, deeply entrenched brand on this entire list, a household icon that has enjoyed complete consumer trust for over a century, is sitting in your kitchen right now. And its placement at the absolute worst spot of our audit is a revelation you cannot afford to miss. The great industrial cleansing. Before we name a single brand name, we need to talk about how the modern food industry completely broke salt. For most of human history, salt was geology in a crystal. It was harvested by hand from dried ancient seabeds or sun-baked coastal flats, carrying the distinct thumbprint of the earth through shades of gray, tan, and soft pink. It was loaded with naturally occurring magnesium, potassium, and calcium. But as industrial food production scaled up, massive corporations ran into a major problem. Imagine buying a pristine, vintage sports car, taking it to a shady chop shop, tearing out the custom leather seats, the high-end engine, and the stereo system, and replacing them all with rigid, cheap plastic parts just so the vehicle fits perfectly on a high-speed automated assembly line. That is exactly what modern manufacturing does to your salt. Factory machines are delicate, impatient little machines. They require perfectly uniform, bone-dry crystals that behave identically every single microsecond to keep the automated packaging lines running without jamming. Natural, unrefined salt is damp, stubborn, and complex, a total logistical nightmare for a multi-million-dollar corporate supply chain. So, the industry chose to aggressively refine it. They blast the raw salt at extreme, scorching temperatures and apply harsh chemical processes to strip away every single trace mineral until nothing remains but sterile, pure sodium chloride. However, pure sodium chloride has a massive chemical flaw. It absolutely loves moisture. The second it comes into contact with normal air, it aggressively grabs water molecules and welds itself into a giant, rock-solid block that won't pour out of a container. To fix a massive mess they created themselves, corporate chemists introduced anti-caking agents. We are talking about substances like calcium silicate or sodium ferrocyanide. Think about that for a second. To keep the salt free-flowing, they coat every single grain in a chemical shield designed to repel water. It is the culinary equivalent of spraying heavy-duty water repellent onto your breakfast. Then comes the ultimate marketing sleight of hand. Decades ago, public health officials realized that adding iodine to salt was a brilliant way to prevent thyroid issues across the population. It was a genuine medical win, but the corporate execution introduced another hidden twist. To keep that added iodine from oxidizing and evaporating into thin air while the container sits on a shelf at Walmart for months, manufacturers have to add a stabilizer. That stabilizer is dextrose. For those unfamiliar with food science terminology, dextrose is a fancy clinical word for sugar. You are literally seasoning your savory steaks and home-cooked meals with a highly processed powder that requires a hit of engineered sugar just to keep its chemical additives stable. The salt industry managed to pull off a psychological trick. They trained generations of American consumers to believe that bright, blinding white equals purity. We fell for it completely. trading a naturally rich mineral complex for an engineered industrial powder because it looked clean, modern, and clinical. But the alternative options popping up in the wellness aisle aren't a free pass either. As independent testing labs have recently discovered, swapping out industrial white powder for expensive boutique brands can launch you directly into a completely different trap of heavy metals and modern pollution. It gets significantly harsher from here. Dismantling the supermarket illusions, let us begin tracking the worst offenders on American shelves, starting with the baseline commodities and working our way to the most disappointing mainstream brands. If you already feel like checking your own shelf, hit that subscribe button right now. Because the deeper we dig into corporate practices, the uglier the data gets. Market Pantry Iodized Salt. We kick things off at the bottom with Market Pantry Iodized Salt, the prominent house brand you find sitting on the lower shelves at Target. It costs mere pennies per container, and that rock-bottom price is exactly how they catch you. Flip the canister around and look at the ingredient panel. You will find salt, calcium silicate as an anti-caking agent, dextrose, and potassium iodide. On paper, it is standard. In reality, it is a complete black box. When you look for a sourcing page or public testing data for this salt, you hit an absolute brick wall of corporate silence. Target refuses to name the physical mines or solar flats where this mineral is extracted. This is a generic commodity bulk poured into a red and white house container. Because the grains are processed down into a microscopic, uniform dust, it dissolves almost instantly upon touching moisture. This makes oversalting your food incredibly easy because you cannot visually gauge the volume by feel. Furthermore, that heavy dose of calcium silicate leaves a stubborn, cloudy, chalky residue whenever you try to make clear pickling brines or delicate broths. It is not an immediate health hazard, but it is a total ghost in the machine. You are buying an anonymous chemical product from an undisclosed industrial supply chain that demands absolute blind trust from the shopper. Kroger Iodized Salt. Next up is Kroger Iodized Salt, a structural twin to the Target version with a slightly different logo. Kroger pulls from the exact same corporate playbook, offering ultra-refined sodium chloride that has been aggressively stripped of every single trace element that native salt is supposed to possess. To ensure it glides out of the cardboard canister without clumping, they add synthetic flow agents back into the mix. The primary accusation here is heavy industrial modification paired with zero supply chain transparency. Kroger provides no consumer-facing traceability metrics or independent chemical analysis reports. You are paying for convenience and artificial aesthetics. The intense refinement process creates a product so stark and chemically isolated that it tastes aggressively sharp and one-dimensional, followed immediately by a faint, chemical metallic tang on the back of your throat due to the degrading potassium iodide. Worse yet, once you crack open that cardboard tube and expose it to household air, the unstable iodine content steadily degrades and loses its nutritional potency within months, leaving you with nothing but synthetic flow chemicals and a harsh, biting saltiness that ruins delicate home cooking. Great Value Iodized Salt. Moving along the aisle, we hit Great Value Iodized Salt, the massive house brand anchored at Walmart. This product possesses an enormous consumer footprint and an incredibly low price tag, but it offers the exact same profile as its predecessors: refined sodium chloride, a heavy anti-caking package, and stabilizer sugar. Let us be completely fair here. There is no immediate scandal inside this canister. For millions of busy American families, this is an affordable pantry staple. But our audit strictly rewards transparency and ecological safety, and Great Value offers absolutely neither. This is a price-driven commodity blended from rotating, unnamed bulk suppliers across the country. The free-flow additives used in these giant industrial batches can behave entirely unpredictably when subjected to high heat, occasionally altering the consistency of baked goods and brines. The uniform, dusty texture makes it completely useless as a finishing salt for a nice steak or roasted vegetables, behaving more like an industrial seasoning chemical than a natural food ingredient. It sits here because it asks you to swallow an anonymous mystery origin story based entirely on a cheap price tag. Men's Mark Iodized Salt. Then we hit the warehouse clubs with Members Mark Iodized Salt from Sam's Club. This is where bulk buying becomes a psychological trap. When you purchase a massive 3-pound twin-pack container, you stop thinking about what is inside it. You never turn that giant plastic tub around, and you never question its origin. It uses the exact same anonymous, over-refined chemical build as the smaller grocery store brands. The hidden issue with these massive warehouse tubs is shelf life versus chemical stability. Long before your family can physically consume multiple pounds of fine table salt, the stabilized iodine begins to break down and oxidize, while the anti-caking agents are left to cope with months of kitchen humidity. The large pour spout encourages massive overuse, quietly driving up the sodium density of your everyday meals without adding a single note of actual culinary nuance. It is an industrial commodity designed for absolute volume, forcing you to trade quality for sheer, thoughtless mass. Iberia iodized salt. Now, let us look at a regional staple, Iberia iodized salt. A fixture in millions of kitchens across the East Coast and southern states, heavily relied upon for traditional Latin, Caribbean, and coastal cooking. Avoid lists love to pick on giant Midwestern supermarket chains while letting heritage brands slide, but our audit does not play favorites. Iberia is an over-refined table salt carrying the classic trifecta of isolated sodium chloride, moisture-blocking chemicals, and sugar. The gap here is the exact same story: heavy mechanical refinement plus incredibly thin sourcing data. Iberia does not disclose the specific marine flats or underground mines supplying their product, nor do they publish consumer-facing contaminant testing data. The reality of this budget pricing is that it reflects the lowest cost, highest volume commodity supply chains available. You get zero mineral complexity, a cloudy sediment when dissolved in liquids, and an absolute lack of traceability masked behind a warm, nostalgic package. Badia table salt. Right alongside it on the shelf sits Badia table salt. Badia built a massive empire on affordable, highly accessible spices and everyday seasonings, but their plain table salt is as basic and industrial as it gets. It is top 5 now, and the reason these brands are climbing the risk ladder isn't that they are containing distinct poisons. It is that they represent the absolute peak of the refined, non-transparent corporate spectrum. They sell at such a massive scale that nobody thinks to ask a single question. Think about the massive shift in perspective you need to make right now. You would never buy a premium bottle of olive oil if the label refused to name the country of origin. You would never buy a bag of coffee beans labeled simply beans with zero sourcing information. Yet when it comes to a mineral that makes up a massive part of your daily biology, we willingly accept a simple, one-word label and a total mystery origin without blinking. Badia's table salt is an absolute black box built strictly for long-term shelf life, completely ignoring natural mineral structures and batch traceability. Morton Light Salt. Things get incredibly interesting when we look at Morton Light Salt. This product is a highly engineered blend containing roughly 50% sodium chloride and 50% potassium chloride. The marketing pitch sounds beautiful. Cut your dietary sodium in half while keeping your food tasting exactly like normal salt. For individuals managing severe blood pressure under strict medical supervision, it can be a functional tool. But as an everyday kitchen salt, it is a complete minefield. First, it is the absolute antithesis of a natural, clean product. It is a heavily manufactured chemical compound loaded with synthetic potassium chloride, anti-caking agents, magnesium carbonate, potassium iodide, and dextrose. Second, that extra potassium is absolutely not free or safe for everyone. For consumers dealing with undiagnosed kidney issues or taking specific blood pressure medications, an unexpected influx of dietary potassium can be incredibly dangerous. From a culinary standpoint, potassium chloride leaves a bitter, metallic, chemical aftertaste that real consumers frequently describe as tasting like a battery. It easily throws off your chemistry when baking, and it serves as a stark reminder that trying to chemically engineer salt usually results in a bad product. Lawry's Seasoned Salt. Next, we examine Lawry's Seasoned Salt. This product barely qualifies as actual salt at all, yet it sits proudly in the salt aisle of every single Target, Safeway, and Walmart in America. It is a highly processed blend of salt, sugar, cornstarch, paprika, turmeric, natural flavors, and a long list of anti-clumping chemicals. It tastes great on French fries because it is designed to trigger your brain's fat and sugar reward centers. But it behaves on your shelf as an absolute marketing illusion. The moment you flood a seasoning blend with cornstarch, industrial colorants, and refined sugar, you have abandoned the realm of pure minerals and stepped directly into the world of ultra-processed food additives. Lawry's features the longest ingredient list in the entire aisle, prioritizing unnatural flavor consistency over mineral purity. If you think you are simply salting your dinner with this, you are actually dumping hidden carbohydrates, starches, and anti-caking agents all over your plate. Morton Iodized Table Salt. Finally, we arrive at the ultimate icon of the American grocery aisle, Morton Iodized Table Salt. The signature blue canister, the little girl with the yellow umbrella, the timeless slogan, "When it rains, it pours." It is the single most recognizable salt brand in the United States. and its overwhelming familiarity is exactly why it lands at the absolute worst spot of our mainstream breakdown. Morton is the definitive archetype of the great industrial salt illusion. It is the exact product that successfully conditioned 3 generations of American shoppers to believe that a highly processed, blindingly white, chemically altered powder is the gold standard of purity. Within that famous blue tube lies a formulation stripped entirely of its organic mineral matrix, blasted with extreme heat, and coated with calcium silicate to keep it flowing like liquid silk. It is number 2 on our overall avoidance assessment, not because it contains an acute toxin, but because it is the ultimate symbol of complete consumer capitulation. It is a product that completely severed our connection to real, traceable food sources and replaced it with an iconic, comforting brand logo. It leaves a permanent chemical cloudiness in water, offers nothing but a sharp, biting, aggressive sting of pure sodium chloride, and proves that the most trusted brands are often the ones hiding the deepest industrial secrets. The clean alternatives worth buying, and now, what it was worth watching all the way through for. We have waded through a massive swamp of industrial refining, deceptive marketing labels, and mystery chemical additives. But the complete reward of this investigation is realizing that you do not have to settle for synthetic white powder or contaminated wellness gimmicks. There are phenomenal, highly transparent brands available right on American store shelves that respect both your physical biology and your culinary standards. When you switch to a genuine, unadulterated product, the tonal shift in your kitchen is immediate. Diamond Crystal Kosher Salt. We start our recommended list with the absolute workhorse of professional kitchens across America, Diamond Crystal Kosher Salt. You can grab these iconic red boxes at regional supermarkets like Safeway, Kroger, or via major online retailers. Diamond Crystal is not a boutique wellness brand wrapped in earthy cardboard to charge a premium. It is a legendary culinary staple that has earned its spot purely through mechanical simplicity and radical purity. The production process is uniquely elegant. They use a proprietary Allberger evaporation process that coaxes the salt into light, hollow, pyramidal crystals. There are 0 anti-caking agents, 0 artificial flow chemicals, and absolutely no added sugars inside this box. When you pour it into a glass of water, it dissolves into a flawlessly crystal clear liquid with 0 chalky synthetic fog. The sensory experience of using Diamond Crystal completely ruins standard table salt forever. Because the flakes are incredibly light and hollow, they do not hit your tongue with a sharp, blinding sting of pure chemical sodium. Instead, it offers a clean, crisp, gentle salinity that melts smoothly over food. Chefs love it because it is physically impossible to accidentally oversalt a dish by eye. The volumetric density is roughly half that of granulated table salt, allowing you to season by feel with absolute precision. The cost analysis makes it an absolute steal for any household budget. While a box costs slightly more upfront than a cheap generic tin, it breaks down to mere fractions of a cent per serving, giving you professional-grade chemical purity for pennies a week. The only minor drawback is that it is completely uniodized. If you make the switch, you simply need to ensure you are getting your daily dietary iodine from natural whole food sources like seafood, dairy, or eggs. Redmond Real Salt. If you want a naturally mined rock salt with an ancient pedigree, the clear winner is Redmond Real Salt. Widely available across the United States at Whole Foods, Sprouts, and local organic markets. This brand represents the exact opposite of a mystery black box supply chain. Every single grain is extracted directly from a protected underground volcanic deposit in Utah. This deposit is the remnant of an ancient, pristine Jurassic seabed that dried up and was sealed beneath heavy layers of protective earth millions of years before the advent of industrial chemical pollution, modern runoff, or commercial shipping lanes. This specific geographic origin is massive when it comes to the terrifying reality of modern microplastics. Independent laboratory screenings consistently show that landmined rock salts pulled from deep, sealed terrestrial deposits rank at the absolute lowest tier for microplastic contamination because the plastic age never physically touched them. Redmond does not subject their harvest to scorching industrial heat or chemical bleaching. They simply crush it, screen it, and package it. It retains over 60 naturally occurring trace minerals, giving the crystals a beautiful, subtle, multicolored speckling of natural tans and pinks. In the kitchen, it delivers a complex, sweet, incredibly rich flavor profile without a single hint of that harsh, metallic, synthetic aftertaste found in chemically stabilized store brands. The company is radically transparent, routinely publishing their full mineral analysis and third-party laboratory safety testing directly for consumers. It is slightly more expensive than standard supermarket commodities, But when you look at the cost per meal, you are paying an incredibly small premium to completely eliminate synthetic flow additives and modern ocean plastics from your family dinner table. Maldon Sea Salt. Finally, we arrive at the absolute gold standard of finishing salts, Maldon Sea Salt. You can find this iconic green box sitting proudly on the premium spice shelves at Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, Wegmans, and high-end local grocers. Maldon has been harvested by a single family-run operation in the coastal marshes of Essex since 1882, relying entirely on traditional artisan methods rather than modern high-speed chemical engineering. They take pristine seawater, filter it gently, and heat it over open pans until the salt slowly crystallizes into stunning, paper-thin giant architectural pyramid flakes. There are no chemicals, no bleaching agents, and no synthetic modifiers added to force a uniform shape. Independent chemical testing confirms that Maldon repeatedly hits non-detect status for toxic heavy metals and industrial residues, proving that heritage craftsmanship can outperform corporate chemistry every single day. Medium. The physical experience of using Maldon is pure culinary theater. It is designed strictly as a finishing salt. The final glorious touch you crumble over a perfectly seared steak, fresh roasted asparagus, or warm chocolate chip cookies right before serving. When a flake hits your tongue, it delivers an instant, bright, clean burst of clean salinity, followed by a spectacular, delicate crunch that completely transforms the texture of your food. Because the flakes are so massive and structurally complex, they do not melt instantly into grease or steam, allowing them to accent your meals beautifully. Let us be completely honest about the downside. It is a premium product with a price tag to match. Using Maldon to salt your rolling pasta water would be an absolute waste of money. But because it is used exclusively as a final visual accent, a single box can easily last an average household for 6 months to a year. It wins our overall audit because it completely shatters the corporate illusion. It does not win by costing a fortune or flashily shouting about trendy wellness fads on the front panel. It wins by being a beautifully simple, traceable product from a family that cares about quality. Your 6-rule checklist for the grocery aisle. Now that you know the truth behind the packaging, you need a quick, bulletproof way to protect your family without spending 20 minutes analyzing fine print. Take a screenshot of these 6 ironclad rules to use next time you are navigating the spice aisle at Target, Whole Foods, or Safeway. Rule 1. Scan the ingredient label exclusively for a single word, salt. If you see calcium silicate, sodium ferrocyanide, yellow prussiate of soda, or dextrose, drop the container immediately and walk away. A high-quality mineral requires exactly 0 industrial additives or stabilizers to flow properly. Rule 2. Never fall for the word natural or sea salt on a front panel. The terms are completely unregulated marketing fluff used by giant brands to hide highly processed, bleached commodities. Look specifically for the terms unrefined or minimal processing. Rule 3. Prioritize landmined rock salts over modern ocean salts. Landmark environmental tracking shows that marine-sourced salts carry significantly higher microplastic densities due to global ocean pollution, whereas subterranean, sealed prehistoric beds like Utah's are structurally protected from modern plastic waste. Rule 4. Avoid uniform, powdery textures for hand seasoning. Microscopic, dusty grains dissolve instantaneously in contact, blinding your ability to judge salinity by touch and causing massive accidental sodium overdoses. Choose coarse or flaky grinds that you can feel between your fingertips. Rule 5. Verify the specific geographical source. If a canister says distributed by a corporate headquarters in Illinois or Arkansas, but completely refuses to name the physical estuary, solar flat, or mine of origin, you are buying a nameless commodity from a rotating corporate supply chain. Rule 6. Run the cloudy glass test on your current pantry stash tonight. Real, unadulterated salt should dissolve into a nearly crystal clear liquid. If the water morphs into a hazy, foggy mess with a permanent chalky film floating on top, you are looking directly at synthetic, water-repellent flow chemicals. Shifting your perspective, the entire industrial food complex is explicitly designed to make you shop on absolute autopilot. Corporations want you to judge your products by bright colors, comforting household logos, and cheap price tags because it allows them to strip real food down to chemical emptiness and maximize their corporate margins. But stopping this cycle does not require you to blow your entire monthly budget on exotic boutique items. It requires one simple shift in your daily thinking. Stop looking at the front of the box, turn the container around, and demand to know exactly where that substance came from and what was done to it in the factory. Purity is not something a marketing department can paint onto a label. It is a mathematical reflection of clean sourcing and minimal human interference. Thank you so much for spending your valuable time digging into the facts with me today. You definitely have a friend or family member who is currently dumping chemical flow agents all over their children's breakfast. So please share this video with them right now. They deserve to know what they are actually buying. I want to hear from you directly. Drop a comment below and tell me exactly which brand of salt is sitting on your kitchen shelf right now, and were you completely blindsided to see how it ranked on our official audit? I read every single reply. If you want to see exactly how big corporations pull the exact same deceptive tricks on your everyday bottled cooking oils, click right here to watch our full investigative exposé. Turn the canister around. That is the whole game.